Hi, everyone. Hope you all had a great weekend. I know I did. Hope you all got some time to spend for yourselves, just de stress, relax. You guys know me. I was all over my couch this weekend. We had a great sports weekend. We had some college basketball, that UFC fight. I can't believe McGregor got knocked out in the second round. And then we had the conference championship football games. So you guys know I had a big appointment with my couch. Basically, didn't leave all weekend. Had a great time. And I hope you guys got to do something that you enjoyed too. So let's get into today's lesson. Today we're going to be going over something a little new, right? But it's going to incorporate some things that we've done in the past. But we're going to need to learn some new terms. So we got to make sure we have those notebooks ready to go, pencils ready to go, and we got to have our mind ready to go. Let's focus up. Let's do this. All right. So what we're going to be talking about today are expressions. Expressions. Okay. So when you guys think of expressions, I know that I've got a few that I like to use in like a sense of like talking. I've got a few expressions that I like generally, let's go. Hey, load up, focus in, stuff like that. But now we're talking about them in terms of math expressions. Does anyone have any ideas what a math expression is? Let you think about it. Okay. So a math expression is basically just a math phrase without an equal sign. Okay. An expression is simply just a math phrase without an equal sign. So what do I mean by a math phrase without an equal sign? If we see something like this, 2x plus 4 here, that is an expression. What we're going to want to be able to do by the end of this little lesson here is be able to identify the parts of an expression. So let's try and figure out what those are. Hope you all wrote down that definition. So let's start with the thing here in the expression that looks the most different. Which one of these things looks like the most different to you? One of these things is not like the other, as a Sesame Street gag once said. It's this guy right here, the X. X isn't a number. Does anyone remember what an X or a letter is called when we're using it in math or maybe even science? It's called a variable. It's called a variable. A variable represents a number that can change. Variable means it can change. Think of other words that kind of sound like variable. It varies, it changes from time to time. Variations, different changes to an original thing. Those line up. So variable, number that can change. And just to put here as a definition, it's shown as a letter. Okay. And just to give you guys a heads up, X is the most commonly used variable. Okay. That's why back a few weeks ago when we were going over some multiplication type stuff, I had you guys stop using X as the multiplication sign because simply, X is the most common term used as a variable. And I don't want you guys to get confused by that. Okay. So that's one part of our expression here, the variable. Hope you guys wrote that down. Now, let's take a look at this number all by its lonesome over here. Just our plain old positive 4. This positive 4, well, this plus 4, it's always just going to mean plus 4, isn't it? It's just going to be plus 4. It's what it is. It's what it always will be. That's why it's called a constant. A constant, pretty simply, is a number not attached to anything, whose value never changes. Or, in other words, always stays the same. Make sure you write this down now. A constant is a number that's not attached to anything whose value never changes. Or, in other words, always stays the same. I think back to when I was about your age. My mom always told me that I was a constant pain in her neck. I bothered her. I was annoying, right? Think about it like that. Think about it in context of other things. Constant means that it's always happening. Constant means it's always happening. So in this math situation here, this 4 always means 4. However, just to clarify, if this were 2x plus 8, then the constant in this situation would be 8. The constant is not necessarily always 4. It is just always the number that is not attached to anything whose value never changes. Okay? So I put it back to 4. Now the constant is back to being 4. Okay? So that leaves one more piece of the expression that we haven't talked about yet. And that would be this 2 here. So let me get an erase over here. Hope you wrote that down. And now we've got this number here, this 2. It's directly attached to the x. It's right next to it. That means they work together. They go together. This 2 has an effect on the x. So we call it a coefficient. And simply, a coefficient is a number that is directly next to a variable, a number that is directly next to a variable, and it affects the variable. We'll go over how it affects that at a later time. That might be tomorrow's lesson. For today, all we're worried about is identifying these 3 things. So, easy things to remember. Variable. So let's just go over coefficient one more time. Coefficient is the number that is directly next to a variable, just like this 2 is directly next to the x. Okay? Right with, efficient, and they affect one another. Okay? That's how you can remember that. Okay? So make sure you wrote that down because I'm going to erase it. Okay. So if we look at a new equation, we should be able to identify the variable, the constant, and the coefficient. All 3. So if we look at this one right here, we look at 3y minus 5, well, there's a new variable. Our variable is no longer x. The letter is no longer x in this situation. That's okay. We can see what letter's up there. We know that the variable is y. Okay? And now we can see the constant It looks like it's 5, doesn't it? We've got 3y minus 5. Looks like 5 should be the answer. But we need to be careful. Remember our lesson on negative numbers. We see that minus sign in front right there. That means we're talking about a negative 5. Be careful with your signs, okay? That's why I put it in red. Be careful. Be on the lookout for those signs. So in this case, our constant is not 5. It's negative 5 because we're subtracting the 5 in the expression. And now, finding the coefficient. As we all remember, the coefficient is just the number directly next to the variable. And in this situation, we can easily see that that is 3. And now, boom, we have identified all 3 parts of this expression. Just that easy. Now, before I let you guys try this on your own with the worksheet that's posted on Google Classroom, I want us to look at a challenge one. Okay? I want us to look at a challenge one. Now, I want you to identify the variable, the constant, and the coefficient of this expression. Ooh, this one. This one's a little tricky, isn't it? We haven't seen one like this before. But you know what? That's okay. Because I've got some good news for you guys. It is okay to have more than one variable and one coefficient in an expression. Okay? Just going to write that up here. It is okay to have more than one variable and coefficient. Remember that. It is totally okay, right? So now, if I grab the red marker, we can see, all right, if we start with the variables, right? Well, we're just looking for the letters. What are the letters in this expression? A and B. So that means our variables are just A and B. You can write it with a comma, or you could use the word and. I just used a comma here. Then we've got the coefficients. Well, let's start with the constant. What's not attached to anything? Our friend the 10 over here. He's got nothing going on. And since it's a plus, we know it's a positive 10. Constant 10. And finally, our coefficients, which are our numbers directly next to each of our variables. We've got ourselves the 7. And we've got this 8. But remember, there's the negative in front of it. So it has to be negative 8 as our coefficients. 7 and negative 8. It looks something like that. Okay, everyone, now it's your turn. You guys get the opportunity to try and identify parts of these expressions. Okay, remember, variable, it's a letter. Okay, it represents something that can change. Constant, it's just a plain number by itself. Its value never changes. It always stays the same. And coefficients, those are the numbers that work together with the variables. They're directly attached to each other, and they affect one another. All right? Give that worksheet a go. Let me know if you have any issues. I'll be right here to help however I can. All right? Have fun.